Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to another live stream of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Today is Wednesday, January 26th. I've been having internet trouble, so that could certainly happen at any point. Let me start with that. Secondly, I have the internet service support people coming in theoretically about an hour. So I'm going to try and burn through the news very quickly and basically not even really play Yu-Gi-Oh! Today at all. So apologies if you're really coming for that, but like there has been kind of this consistent issue anyways with Yu-Gi-Oh! In that I can't really find a good way to start a game and then ignore half the game in favor of uh, talking about the news. It's going to be much more of a tit for tat situation instead of a hyper doing a little bit of this, then doing a little bit of that, doing a little bit of that. This. I have been, for the accountability section, just focusing in on playing the solo stories, and I have one more solo story to do, but I've also been banging my head against the wall quite a bit to do all the duels to go from clear to completed. There seems to be individual rewards for each duel you complete, particularly with your own custom decks, but it is pretty limited in its returns otherwise. And then I've been messing with this deck here where I'm trying to find a really good deck that could summon Exodia, which A is probably really stupid and B is proving to be less than successful, particularly against the solo decks that I'm playing, where seems like in the current meta the power creep is just so high that if you can't do 8 things in the first couple turns to summon 3 or 4 2500 fusion XYZ creatures, then you're going to lose no matter what. And Exodia is just an old school mentality in which you're going to be highly unlikely in the first 2 turns to get all 5 pieces of Exodia in your hand. And the crafting points and the gems, I feel like they are pretty much going to start coming a lot slower, because while you do have login rewards that are giving you kind of a small amount, the login 7 times in a period daily quest has disappeared. That's been done. The daily live gives you only 5 gems, and the other daily quests, which you don't seem to be able to reset any of these for higher rewards, are pretty pathetically low as far as the amount of gems. And yeah, once you get everything as far as the lifetime done, which yeah, that's gonna happen in less than a month for most of these things, you just don't have any other opportunities unless something resets. Now the good news is, I'll say for Duel Masters, before I pretty much just completely ignore it, is there's a maintenance mode that's happening very quickly, actually today also. So I've lined up everything fairly well, but that's about the only thing I can kind of hope, is that the maintenance mode will potentially add a lot more. Although what they're really promising to do is not add, but take away a couple of features during the maintenance mode in an effort, I think, just to try and get everything working better. Which, yeah, you, you're gonna burn through content in this game. I think a lot quicker than they realize if they don't support it. There is a bit of a fear, certainly, that it isn't going to be supported in the fact that the even the copyright on the very beginning has the Konami digital subdivision of 2022, but the copyright for the original concepts of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is only 2020. So it kind of gives you the feeling that they potentially have not even bothered to renew the copyright of Yu-Gi-Oh! in a couple years, and those little copyright notices at the bottom of the screen are really just claims of copyright, so it's not like you really have to file any process to change the number higher. There is, in the United States, I don't know how Japanese law works, a slightly higher protection for registering your copyright claim after the fact, or before the fact, before you sue somebody for copyright infringement, but it's not inherently necessary. Alright. And because my network messed up, then my ISP, my macro messed up, which also caused some trouble. Let's see. GameDeveloper.com tweeted out a picture here that's supposed to be a response from Activision Blizzard. As far as the request for unionization, yeah. See, now we're having connecting issues immediately. Yeah, that's the problem. Anyways, it says, we're carefully reviewing and considering the request last week and tried to find a mutually acceptable solution that would, unfortunately, the parties could not reach an agreement. Yeah, you don't need to read any more of this. This is exactly what I said was going to happen. There's no way Activision Blizzard, and in all fairness, I think we need to be careful and not dismiss Microsoft's hand in this from the background too. There's no way either one of those companies wanted a union, and they are not going to. They weren't going to just accept it. I have also heard from Giant Bomb, which honestly they're not a good source for anything, that they've, of I think the 30 employees that were trying to form a union, they've like hired some of them and put them in different departments at full time, and so they're kind of just breaking up the union by putting them in different departments, and like people in different departments doing different jobs. It's kind of impossible to have a union that represents those 30 people only. The everybody at the in every associate level employee could be in the union, certainly, but it's hard to address the needs of individuals in different departments doing different jobs, dealing with different bosses, when it's so scattershot and spread up. And like I said, um, the the QA staff was kind of the worst people to do it. Um, let's see. So what they're saying is they expect the union to be filing a petition to the National Labor Review Board for an election, uh, if filed, the company will formally reply to it, basically trying to counter that. Um, so that I mean, they're not trying to look like the bad guys, but they're basically trying to stop the unionization. Uh, and see at the bottom there, they've made a number of changes over the past years, including raising the minimum compensation for Raven QA employees by 41%. I also heard from Giant Bob, again, poor source, that uh, that a lot of the QA people were getting paid in overtime, and so they were making nowhere close to the amount of money that they were making, and that may have affected why they stopped the strike prematurely to, I guess, build up the strike fund, which almost certainly there was very little in the strike fund anyways. Um, and it is kind of a great example of how overtime is never a good thing. I know they make it out like it's a good thing for some people, and some people like love it. The idea that the gambling nature of, oh, I'm getting time and a half or double time, or even double time and a half sometimes. Uh, People love that multiplier and that gambling aspect, but the truth is, you want guaranteed pay in some form or fashion. Ideally, everybody would want to be salaried. So if the job took 40 hours to complete, you got your money, and then you went home. If it took 20 hours a week to complete, you got your money and you went home. If it takes 60 hours to complete, then your workload's too high, and then you need to negotiate, uh, maybe not even better, um, not even better pay, but just better work conditions and more employees. Um, so yeah, hmm. So they raised minimum compensation for the QA employees by 41%, extended paid time off, extended access to medical benefits for uh, employees and their significant others, and transitioned more than 60% of the QA team into full-time employees, which, yeah, they did. So basically, they were firing or letting go temporary employees, which temporary employees is yet another scam that really should be illegal. Uh, there should be some um, major like restrictions on temporary employees, because it is the default, one of the many default tricks that businesses do to try and avoid paying benefits. Um, at a certain point, the idea of a probationary period where you don't have to pay for benefits falls apart in the United States, anyways, because you have created this system specifically where healthcare and, in fact, just a person's ability to live whatsoever is so tied to the job that to say, well, we can create this backdoor system in which we still don't pay for healthcare is ridiculous. It may very well be a case where if the National Labor Review Board or whatever organization, maybe just Congress, said, no, you have to pay benefits from day one. And you also have to pay benefits for like 2 weeks after you fire somebody. At that point, it may just force companies into a system where, um, where you are, um, where they start pushing for universal basic income or universal health care. in this case is what I'm talking about, but universal basic income is also a good idea. But it's a bad idea, obviously, is to actually try and play Yu-Gi-Oh! Here you can see that immediately, the first game, I disconnected. It's been really, really terrible today. And I would have very much preferred for the ISP people to come yesterday. But whatever. This was the earliest I could schedule them. It might be not something down the line. It might actually be their modem. New Line, I guess this is New Line Media, is moving forward with a Mortal Kombat sequel, and the Moon Knight scribe Jeremy Slater is scripting it. I definitely heard about Marvel making a Moonlight movie and then that guy dying in a skiing accident or something, so that seems weird. Some major people at YouTube are leaving, but in all fairness, I mean, it kind of doesn't even really matter. Like Ryan Watt, who was in charge of YouTube gaming, and we've had no announcement of who will be the new person in charge. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not face forward at all, and if there is just kind of no YouTube gaming division anyways, because that whole concept was never really supported by YouTube in general, and I have to assume that is just Susan Wojcicki in particular not supporting it. Susan Wojcicki put out a video on her channel of their priorities for 2022. Most of it sounded fine, but she did also throw out there the idea of adding NFTs to YouTube, which, yeah, nobody likes NFTs. I don't even know why you bothered to say that. Particularly making it like a priority. But yeah, there was two other big names. Ryan Watts is moving over to this Polygon $Matic is as the CEO, so he's not, it's not really a case so much in which he is taking a lower job. Plus, it's the only other thing you could have possibly hoped is that he would have he would have potentially replaced Susan Wojcicki as the CEO of YouTube, but I don't even know if you really would care, like, if that would really improve anything, because it's not like if he was a voice for anything different than the standard SJW run, we've got to promote big companies and promote our winners. If he was a voice for doing anything different than the way Susan Wojcicki was doing things, none of that was ever said out loud. And so, yeah, you know, YouTube Originals has been shut down. The guy from YouTube Gaming is gone. That really then makes me really feel like, okay, well, we may, by the end of this year or throughout this year, see some big changes to YouTube. What I don't suspect, though, is that all of a sudden YouTube is going to disappear or go away, but I could see it becoming oddly restrictive. Hopefully, if it did become oddly restrictive, it would just say no new channels. You can't create new channels, but all the people who already have created a channel are grandfathered in. But even if they take that step, it's only going to be a matter of time before they start saying small channels are going to be limited in the number of videos or the number of hours, or just limited in general. in even more ways, so that there will just be no way whatsoever for a new YouTuber to rise through the nonsense and the bad content, which maybe I am in the category of the bad content. I don't know. Even my tickers are broken now. The Dead by Daylight, the Archives Tome 10 Saw is available, which this is age restricted. I feel like that picture here is not of a Saw character I recognize. I know I haven't watched like the most recent Saw movies, but yeah, I don't even know what this is supposed to be. The Billy puppet spawns these weird arms and legs and is like summoned through some kind of Hellraiser cube type device. That just like has nothing to do with Saw. And yeah, this character doesn't look really like the Saw character. Like, you'd be wearing the pig mask, not the Billy the puppet face on your face. You wouldn't be wearing also the jawbreaker trap on your head like a helmet. And I think he was wearing the hood backwards too. Yeah, he's wearing it wrong. Because they said in the commentary that they flipped it around. The red was on the outside, the black was on the inside. I'm fairly certain. It's been a long time. So yeah, maybe they're trying something out there, like, which they definitely have been trying out that idea anyways, that that they would potentially make everyone become Jigsaw in the future, and that way they don't have to have Tobin Bell, I believe is the actor's name, come back for yet another movie after his character is supposedly dead, or pretty definitively shown to be dead. Although the most recent Jigsaw movie really didn't have, I think, anything to do with Saw, and was clearly just rebranded halfway through development. Anyways, news. Uncharted PS5 remasters will let players transfer their PS4 save data and trophies. We had already talked about that. Switch Online's Nintendo 64 input lag, it's claimed. This is all from videogameschronicles.com. Here's how Zelda Ocarina of Time's unofficial PC port is looking, which I guess these are just the screenshots. Yeah, it's kind of premature to get super hyped about that at the moment, though. Let's see. Apparently, an issue popped up on the PlayStation Network where all PlayStation 4 trophies were briefly wiped and labeled PlayStation 3. It has sparked backwards compatibility speculation. Nvidia could abandon the $40 billion deal for iPhone and Switch chip maker ARM, which, yeah, ARM is in this weird position where it would like to be acquired, but then also the Chinese branch of ARM basically went rogue, and they are making ARM chips in China and not really following anything. So there's real question if maybe the Chinese branch is even in the right, and the UK head department is in the wrong. So yeah, ARM chips are kind of important because they're used in a lot of places, but they're used in a lot of places because because there's not a great competition. It wouldn't be incredibly hard for AMD or Intel if they could figure it out to make a low-powered chip, and overnight all phones and low-level devices would be using that, with less of a license going to AMD and Intel than what goes to ARM, because ARM mostly is just a licensing company that then license out its technology and copyrights it basically to the chip makers. There is also a very, very real possibility that Raspberry Pi will close the gap and we will see custom Raspberry Pi chips coming out that compete with ARM chips, whereas right now I think Raspberry Pis are kind of still using ARM chips, but I think they are definitely moving to the concept of eventually making their own chips, and then potentially selling them as to even other companies. And it wouldn't even be super crazy if the Chinese company Expressive came out with something that was like a super beefed up ESP32 chip that really could handle and compete with an ARM chip. The chips they're making right now are not really targeting that market, but it wouldn't be super hard for them to take their core processing concepts in an ESP32 and then make enough modifications so then that would connect to a much bigger RAM chip, and instead of the built-in RAM that are all in one chip package, you would have a separate dedicated CPU from Expressive and a RAM package that has much faster RAM and much more RAM and just a lot more input-output connections to connect to a lot more things. Like that is also believable. But that is also potentially, all of that is potentially stuff that could be like 10 years down the line, and I imagine ARM will just be kind of forced to stay separate for a while. Moving on, Battlefield 2042 has dropped out of Xbox top 50 most played games. It's really not it. EA has confirmed 3 Respawn Star Wars games, including a Jedi Fallen Order sequel. They're also working on a first-person shooter and a strategy game under the Star Wars things. This is effectively going to be the last 3 Star Wars games also that EA works on, because I guess they're just expecting that they will not be able to renew the license because their contract is running out. I wouldn't be surprised if Disney lets them maybe continue with like a third Fallen Order, but the other 2 games are very much, we're hoping to get big successes with them. First person shooter could easily just be another Battlefield. Strategy game could be anything, could be very small, and I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 of these games are being designed in mind with the idea of potentially being able to rip out the Star Wars elements and just sell them as regular standalone games. Which in a lot of ways for licensed games, you probably should make the game first and then seek the license. That'd make a lot more sense. That way, in case the license falls through, you could skin it back to just looking like a generic game. As the Pokemon Legends Arceus trailer teases new look final forms for the starters, which I guess these are the starters you're starting with. I I suppose that's maybe a spoiler, so we'll leave that. Plus, I don't care. Steam is working on a new cloud save feature that promises seamless switching between the deck and PC. This is called Dynamic Cloud Sync. You're going to have to modify your games to support it using an API. It's effectively going to make a save state as you suspend the game, and then potentially upload that save state through the cloud. Even as you're shutting it down, it's not going to actually shut down. It's going to upload the save state didn't shut down to the Valve backend, and you would then be able to play from that save state on your PC. And then when you stop on the PC, the save state would then upload to the cloud and be downloaded when you unpause on your Switch. And that's definitely what you would want to have happened. It is effectively doing the whole, what if I dock this and plug this into a TV without actually having to dock something and plug it into a TV. Now, I guess the question is going to be in the implementation of that, because the question is, could you make a save state on the Steam OS and then go and play a different game and then have somebody else pull that save state on the PC and play that? Because that's the real thing. That's the scenario here, is that you would be playing, let's just pick Doom as an adult on the Steam Deck. Your kid gets home and he wants to play, let's go with Stardew Valley. Can you save the game immediately and bring up Stardew Valley and hand it to the kid, and then go into your gaming room and continue to play Doom? And can you switch it around like that? Or when you is it more of a case when you wake up the Steam Deck, it's just going to automatically pull down whatever it was previously doing, and there's no way to switch games? You definitely want to switch to be able to save the game really quick and switch games, because if you get like a call or a chat message from your friends and they're all saying, hey, we're all getting online to play Halo, why don't you join us? You don't want the whole I can't, I'm playing this other game issue. You want to be able to just save it and move on. And a lot of games, without even the dynamic cloud sync concept and save state concept, a lot of games you can just save and move on. So your mileage is going to definitely vary. There's still a lot of other questions here. Here we have mock-ups of the Steam Deck, again with black all throughout the thumbs, where we've seen black with white plastic on the thumbs. This looks a lot better than what we have seen before. Yeah, this is what they've been showing up until this point, is the white thumbs, and that really stands out. This looks a lot better, but this may be an older picture too. That if these do come out with the white, then I suspect either that's a harder plastic, less likely to grind away, or this will be like the first modification everybody will want to do, is replacing these thumbsticks with pure black ones. But yeah, there's still a lot of questions as far as this first foray into making this kind of hardware. Let's see. Video Games Chronicles continues here. DICE won't get a chance to make Star Wars Battlefront 3, it's claimed. Reports suggest EA is done with Star Wars after newly announced Respawn games. So I guess it was DICE that was making Battlefront, so maybe when the shooter isn't Battlefront 3 after all. But who knows? Like, EA needs to make more standalone products that aren't licenses. Honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if EA tries to potentially acquire companies or be acquired to try and fix the fact that they don't really have anything other than EA sports games and licensed products, mostly Star Wars products. Like, compared to Microsoft, after all these acquisitions, Microsoft has this very dynamic and diverse foundation of companies that have made different games and games that licenses they own. So Microsoft could greenlight and release basically a whole bunch of different types of games based on what might sell the best. Whereas EA's basically got nothing. They can't remake the Star Wars games without renegotiating, and the sports games will only get them so far. Moving on, the Life is Strange Remastered is getting official gameplay 1 week before its release, which I don't see a real reason why you would ever need to show gameplay of a game that already exists, other than to just say, alright, here's the remaster, and the graphics maybe look a little bit better. But honestly, if you told me this was footage of the original version of Life is Strange, I would believe you. This, to me, as someone who only played Life is Strange a couple years ago, this all looks exactly the same to me. Like, it feels like this is a very low effort remaster. And at a certain point, if you're just making the graphics a little better in Life is Strange, you're not making anything interesting to me. Like, the original Life is Strange game needed more consistent gameplay mechanics, and frankly it needs just a whole rewrite because the story was poorly written, in my opinion, and the different chapters and the way the time manipulation mechanics actually worked were poorly thought out. It would have to be a full reboot, and I'm not sure that any of the other Life is Strange games ever got any better. It didn't seem like anybody cared after the first one any more than they cared about the first one. Blizzard, interestingly enough, has revealed it's making a brand new survival game for PC and console. The studio staffed up for a title set in a whole new universe. I mean, at what point is all forgiven, though, with Blizzard and Activision Blizzard? Like, I suppose this might be the right move to announce this now and have it potentially come out after the acquisition, after we see a lot of the potential bad guys. Like, Microsoft is really going to have to sell the narrative that with their acquisition they have gotten rid of all of the bad guys and they have just turned it around, and all of a sudden it is the best place ever to work. Because if it still feels like there's even a few jerks in there, it's just going to be the one bad apple spoiling the bunch. And potentially there is that fear that you bring in Activision Blizzard and some of those bad apples from Activision Blizzard get moved around and transferred to Microsoft and make Microsoft a worse company to work for, which arguably there are some problems with Microsoft already. I don't even know, really, if you think about it, what a AAA survival game is. Like, what I would want a AAA survival game to be would be something akin to like Manhunt or something, where you're trying to survive as people are trying to kill you, or you're killing a lot of people. But almost certainly what survival game means these days is you're going to have a water and food and energy and stamina and maybe even sleep meter, and you're going to wander around a fairly generic asset flipped open world, and you're going to chop down trees and build things, and it's going to be something along the idea of like Minecraft as far as the building mechanic, although it will probably not look like Minecraft, and something along the lines of every other survival game. Otherwise, so yeah, hopefully they take their time and really think things through and figure out a way to make that work. Xbox's post records. Xbox posted a record annual revenue on the Series X and S sales, estimated at $12 million. The Xbox gaming division generated over $16 billion in revenue last year, and the network is down again. Halo Infinite had the biggest launch in series history with over 20 million players. So I guess Halo still is a name that brings in players, even if enthusiasm in general for Halo Infinite is not super high. Activision is reportedly committed to 3 more PlayStation Call of Duties, including Warzone 2. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says he's starring in another video game movie. And I saw a meme of him in a getting over it with Benet Foddy get up, as if they'd possibly make a movie around that. Fortnite with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is not a game I had thought about, but honestly, that is not terrible speculation. Just having him in some kind of battle royale movie, where the quote is, "We're going to bring one of the biggest, most badass games to the screen, one that I've played for years," which the odds of him playing Fortnite seems low. Him being in the Borderlands movie as like Brock wouldn't be terrible. If he just got signed on for that would be kind of crazy. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's in yet another Doom movie or something like that. I think he was in a previous Doom movie, wasn't he? Yeah, if you've really been playing it for years, that starts to limit the number of games there, because it would have to be specifically what games does Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson play. There's probably some interviews out there that would point to the games he's played. There's an interesting question whether the phrase badass is badass anymore. Like, I almost wonder if the new generation would not. That is that kind of 90s edge type terminology where being bad is cool, and I wonder if that's kind of disappeared with the newer generations who actually say what they mean, and they just say cool a little bit more. PlayStation 5 can now auto-upload screenshots and video to the PlayStation mobile app, which I guess that's helpful. Although I guess it really depends on what you can do with it from the mobile app. I have no idea. Capcom has reported record profits yet again as older games continue to sell. Of course, Capcom is definitely painting themselves into a corner, because they're going to have to lower expectations some quarter. They can't just continuously remake everything. They're going to run out of things. They're running into the fabled Resident Evil 4 remake. They went a little too fast, in my opinion, with Resident Evil 3's remake. There's question whether they're going to try and make a remake of Code Veronica. They're still definitely trying to make Battle Royale style or one asymmetric multiplayer elements around the Resident Evil series. Street Fighter will always sell. Monster Hunter is getting more sales. There hasn't really been any indication of a new Devil May Cry in development, which you would almost suspect that there would be. Crytek has officially announced Crysis 4, which I guess that finally gives me an excuse to potentially play Crysis. Now, wasn't Crytek acquired by somebody? They announced it on the Chinese site Bilibili, which almost makes me assume that it was acquired by like Tencent. So yeah, there is potentially something of interest there, and it definitely gives me an excuse to potentially try and play the remasters of Crysis. One of the videos I watched was like an hour-long, just full description of what happens in the original Tomb Raider game. And yeah, seeing it talked about chapter through chapter, level through level of Tomb Raider 1, it's like, yeah, that's not really a game that could be played or covered. I don't even know if it would run without running it through an emulator, and that I'd be able to record it. The YouTuber talking about it said he had to use an emulator, but yeah, I think there's definitely an argument for another reboot of the Tomb Raider series, a soft reboot that tries to maybe have some of the elements of the previous Tomb Raider games, but in fairness, having the story explained to you how, and this is like crazy because I imagine most people, and this is what the YouTuber said, don't even remember what the story was in Tomb Raider 1. Apparently the story out there, and I guess this will be spoilers for a very old game, is that you're collecting 3 keys that unlocks this weird mutant maturation chamber that was built by one of the 3 almost godlike creatures from Atlantis, who is actually the person who's pretending to be human that was sending you to collect the keys in the first place. And near the last couple of levels, you're fighting like these fleshy centaur creatures and fleshy man bat creatures, and it's just like, that doesn't really sound like what Tomb Raider is. Now, up until that point, you're going through a lot of puzzle levels that are kind of terribly designed, that are more themed around Greek mythology and Viking mythology, which you would think for kind of an Indiana Jones ripoff that would make sense, and it isn't even that crazy when you get to like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for there to be Atlanteans and some weirdness there, but the whole story does kind of fall completely off the rails. So it's no real surprise that when they rebuilt the series, rebooted the series, they didn't use any of that story. Anyways, moving on with the news, which we're really just gonna have to burn through the news, and that's gonna be it for the stream. Apparently, the reviewers are debating, is the newest Pokemon the best Pokemon game ever? I've heard a lot of hype around it, although at this point, like, having Video Game Chronicles people debate it when the game isn't even out there is really the wrong time to make those kinds of arguments. The Mistborn author says he should have written Elden Ring instead of George R.R. Martin, which is an interesting swipe, and frankly kind of beneath even Video Games Chronicles to reprint an article like this, because this is not news, this is just pettiness, and it's just sour grapes. A lot of times in news, I would like to see news reporters do better for society and help people by not reprinting the random nonsense people say, or reprinting and making articles around people's flippant tweets. And if anything, Twitter has shown that a lot of times silence is golden, and just spouting off is not good for anybody. But anyways, the fantasy writer claims, Brandon Sanderson claims Martin has no interest in video games. Does that even really matter for a writer? Writing a video game is pretty much the same as writing anything else. I hate to say it, but it's true. GameStop confirms plans to hold a PlayStation 5 in-store sales event on Thursday. Man, we're getting these notifications every time. Xbox UK has promised to improve its subscription auto-renewal processes. Okay, Sony has announced its February PlayStation Plus games. UFC 4, Planet Coaster Console Edition, and Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep and Wonderland one-shot adventure. Wow. I didn't really know. Oh yeah, this is just the repackaging of the Tiny Tina DLC, though, that they're giving you. Gearbox being kind of weird and deceptive by rebundling and reselling as a separate experience the Borderlands 2 DLC. Although in all fairness, if you just are interested in the Tiny Tina stuff, it makes sense to have that as an available thing and give that away as an available thing. I guess the question though is, has Borderlands 2 ever been given away on PlayStation Network? Xbox Series X consoles are currently available online at GameStop. I saw a Yamaha surround sound receiver that was on sale, and one of the complaints about it was that it didn't have enough bandwidth. It didn't have like the full 40 gigahertz bandwidth for 4K with the Xbox Series X. I think there may have been something else wrong with it too for it to be on sale, because surround sounds tend not to go on sale that much. Nothing really is going to go on sale that much these days. But yeah, I wonder. I definitely would like to get a new Yamaha surround sound receiver, but I also don't know how to justify it at all. And if I would like to go to 4K, but I don't have any Blu-rays that I watch or anything like that. And your over-the-air TV or your cable provider's not really going to give you good quality 4K. Streaming at 4K, I guess, is something I could do, but I may have to get a 4K Roku TV at that point, which I'd get a Roku TV no matter what. I don't know how much streaming at 4K on like Netflix really exists, or how good that looks. I need to hurry up real bad here. We're gonna pretty much just try and skip everything as far as games that came out and just leave that. I may even have to look at some off-screen for Friday. Hopefully I can get my internet fixed. The Steam Deck late February launch details have been confirmed. First units will make their way to customers starting the 28th. This is really another case where I think I'm very happy to have not chosen or even thought about getting it, the first generation of this hardware. I feel like a revision to almost certainly will be a better choice for a lot of people. The Mortal Kombat movie sequel is in development, which, yeah, that's not super surprising. Although it is a WB movie, so any WB movie could be canceled fairly quickly. Guilty Gear Strive DLC character Baiken launches January 28th alongside a new stage and combo maker update. We'd already talked about that. A first-person horror game called Paper Dolls 2 is now available for the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. This is a Gametsu article. AI, the Somnium Files Nirvana initiative details story and characters. So that first AI, the Somnium Files, I guess left enough room for a sequel. I feel like this game is made from the developer of Danganronpa, if I recall correctly. The art style kind of implies something like that, even though it kind of looks completely different from Danganronpa. If it's not Danganronpa's developer, then it's the 999 developer. One of those two, I think, worked on it. Bravely Default Brilliant Lights launches January 27th in Japan for smartphones, iOS, and Google Play. Let's see. Prinny presents NIS Classics Volume 2 launches May 10th in North America and May 13th in Europe. And what is included in it? Seems like it's some of the NIS games, but I'm not sure. There's Makai Kingdom Reclaimed and Rebound, and ZHP Unlosing Ranger versus Dark Death Evil Man, and games I have never even heard of. EA and Lucasfilm Games announces 3 Star Wars projects led by Respawn Entertainment. We already covered that. The Pokemon Legends Arceus final trailer. We'd already kind of mentioned that. What would be really crazy is if at some point they announced Pokemon's coming to other consoles. But that would be the beginning of potentially even Nintendo games, solo Nintendo games, coming to other consoles. Since Nintendo is on the board of the Pokemon company, that would be kind of crazy. A game called Little Orpheus is coming to PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on March 1. Looks like it's an adventure game. Apparently, this might be... It says it's upscaled for consoles. That's a terrible way to describe your game. Like, obviously you would want a game to not be upscaled. You'd want it to be downscaled. Currently, it's available on Apple Arcade, so I suppose they did make it with lower default resolutions, and now they're having to upscale. But that's a terrible way to put things. You should definitely sell it more as like new HD visuals instead. Sniper Elite 5 cinematic trailer and key visuals have been released, according to Gametsu. That is one thing I would say that games have gotten almost 100% right in the past 6 or 7 years, is we have not seen any major games that start off with terrible graphics on a cell phone and then just try and upscale and up-res them using cheap upscaling mechanics to 1080p and just blow things up and make them look horrible. We still see some of that as far as cell phone games trying to make it to Steam, but even in that case, it seems like the upscaling algorithms are just rock solid these days. A game called Aztec Forgotten Gods launches March 10th. Yep. I definitely have a concern, personally, when I'm trying to rush through news like this. Like, I don't remember a lot anyways, and the whole point of doing all this was to better inform me, or at least give me a general vibe of understanding what's out there and what's coming out in the future. But yeah, when I'm particularly rushing, I feel like I am going to just forget everything I'm seeing. This game looks like a guy with a giant robot arm when we already had that rabbit game. I think it was called Fist, with the rabbit with the giant arm. So too many games with giant arms. They also have the Life is Strange remastered gameplay and comparison screenshots. So this screenshot versus this screenshot. Well, this definitely seems dimmer and gringier. But I honestly couldn't tell you which one of these was the remastered version. I kind of assumed that this was probably the old version and this was the new version with different lighting. And that's the difference there. This is darker and maybe a little blurrier. But then you look here and it's lighter, but then I'm seeing more polygons. So if they are improving anything, they're doing it by just kind of blurring things out, it feels like, and just putting different visuals on it. I have seen that in previous games where they are not putting a lot of effort into it and they just are tweaking settings a little bit. Like, looking at the hair here versus the hair here, it looks like there's more polygons in the hair here, so I'd assume this is a remastered. It looks like there's a little less detail on the face texture, kind of more of a pale baby face here, where it's kind of more of a flat natural with more freckles face here. But yeah, you shouldn't have to struggle looking at screenshots side by side to tell which one is the remaster, and that's exactly what I'm struggling with. Moving on, Death's Gambit Afterlife is coming to Xbox One this spring. DLC Ashes of Vados announced. We'll leave that at that. Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, the Basics of Battle trailer is available. Check that out if you're interested. Monarch's demo for PS5, PS4, and Switch is now available in North America and Europe. This was that weird looking black and white, almost like Bleach animation style of Waco Mundo. But yeah, it's some sort of RPG game, and I don't even know if I want to click on the trailer and see what the actual game looks like. Yeah, if anything, it really looks like it's just trying to make a Persona game. And at a certain point, playing Monarch and saying, oh, this is just like Persona because I can't stream Persona, might be an idea, but honestly, Monarch would have to become very popular for that to make sense. Otherwise, you should just risk the Content ID claims by covering Persona on YouTube. Moving on, the Last Labyrinth developer Amada KK announces a virtual reality action adventure game called The Tale of Onogoro, which it's odd to have a compound bow in Japanese archery. Like, I have never seen that, because there's a lot of tradition and history around the longer than even a longbow Japanese bows. So to give her this compound bow mechanic in this traditional outfit just kind of smacks into the history and artistry of it. And yes, in reality, if you were going to give a girl who is going to have less of a distance in her pull in archery and less strength to hold the bow back, a compound bow can help make up for that if you're actually going to hunt with a bow and arrow. But this is a video game, and people have been ignoring that for decades in video games, so there's no reason not to ignore that even now and continue to give her a more traditional bow. You're going to irritate a lot more people than you're going to satisfy with that level of realism. Famitsu has review scores for 2 games here, both below 30. The Company Man and Firm together, which, yeah, pretty much a dead week. A game called Survival Quiz City launches March 4th, which definitely does not look like a game that interests me, and notice they're having to put like full anime characters all over it to catch the Japanese audience attention. It seems to me like it is mostly a quiz game, with maybe a little bit of, not Among Us, but what is that other game? Game show. One of the game shows where you're playing against different players. And the shooting element here is probably one little mini game, and that's it. My Girlfriend is a Mermaid Refined is coming to the PS4 on July 7th. It's currently available on the Switch. I assume this is a remake of the visual novel, which I think was somewhat popular. The name sounds familiar. A game called The Fox Awaits Me is coming to the PS4 on September 8th, currently available for Switch. So clearly these are visual novels that are from the same developer, and he's porting them over from the Switch to the PS4 and not even trying for the PS5. And a sequel, The Fox Awaits Me Hannah, has been announced for Switch, so clearly there was a press conference. We haven't even had a lot of announcements for visual novels in the past, since the beginning of the year. It's been so dead. We already talked about Crisis 4 being announced. This is Komatsu's coverage on it. A new KO the Kangaroo game launches this summer for basically everything. New screenshots and trailers. That might be a game that works. I don't even know what the old game how it would play though. So I don't know if it's just a more 3D adventure or if it's more of a 3D platformer collectathon. Kind of feels like it's a 3D platformer, Banjo-Kazooie type game. Which, okay, that might work. Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires demo is now available in the West, if you're interested in that. Crusader Kings 3 for the PS5 and Xbox Series launches March 29th. Dragon Quest X offline details the Weena Islands, if you're interested in that. We already talked about the PlayStation Plus free games. And then there's a GDC survey. Interest in crypto NFT grows, but game developers remain skeptical. We're going to go through just a few of these games. This Looking for Heals, I think I've heard of it. It's already on the follow list. It's mostly positive. Is it out of early access? Yes, it is. These are probably follow games that we'll have to consider. This one came out in October of 2020. And I think we're going to have to say no to this. I guess I'll leave it since it's early access, but I probably shouldn't. Lonely Birds needs more time. This needs more time. Yeah. The next step, certainly for the fall list cleanup, would be to start calculating and looking at the date on the screen and just closing tabs that that need more time. Although I chose not to do that because the real consideration is, does it have less than 30 reviews, and it has it not been out for less than 6 months. So I'd have to calculate both things. I guess a little bit of improvement in programming there would be nice, but it probably would take more time than it's worth. It's a lone land. I don't think there's a full game here. This just feels like an asset flip game. If anything, it might also just be too much of a simplistic thing. Yeah. Buildings appear, you jump from one building to the other. For 99 cents, that's not asking too much, but also I don't know if there's enough of a game here. I feel like this was something that people were streaming for like 1 week last year, and that was it. Yeah. It's just not enough of a game to constantly grow and jump. It is a much better take on the mobile games where you just have to jump higher and higher. It's a more console 3D version of something like that, but yeah, that doesn't make sense. This one, Lone Archer, is a VR game. I guess I was considering it, but I guess I'll have to give it some more time. At some point I probably should remove it. Luna Realm of Colors needs more time. Log Jammers. I guess as a Windjammers. Surprisingly, Giant Bomb did not like Windjammers 2 for as much as they loved Windjammers 1. So, but it's, I guess, arguably at this point not worth it to even think about a spin-off parody game of that, of Windjammers. I don't think I was particularly ever interested in Windjammers 1 because I think their love of Windjammers 1 comes from the fact that they're playing with their friends. I don't know why this local launcher was even on the follow list. This looks like garbage. Yeah, and maybe that is what's happening a lot of times, is that we are, when I just look at something a couple of weeks later, all of a sudden it's real easy. This looks too much like a Game Boy game to interest me. Yes, it's in color, but it's very square. Almost feels like it's trying to do a Pokemon experience as a free-to-play thing. Was this a student project? Well, I guess I'd just say Lockhart Indigo. Check it out yourself if you're interested. It's free. Locked here. Barely has 30 reviews. 70% positive. $1.99. English and Russian. yeah, I'm not seeing anything here that's good enough for a visual novel to justify this. And this art style is, I don't think, anywhere close to being polished enough. It kind of feels just asset flippy. This live stream escape from this hotel as a horror sexual content game is very positive, so I'm going to put it on the wish list. Although, in all fairness, could I really cover that on YouTube? Who knows? Live adventure. This was the one where you use like a camera. It's free to play. Very positive. I'm gonna go ahead and just put this on the wish list, even though it's a free to play game. But honestly, this developer needs to come out with something else fairly quickly to justify covering the free to play game. It's not like got any app purchases or anything. Well, yeah, it's very weird to have potentially these games come out and either they're just demos for the developer or the publisher to bring something else out later, or they just abandon the game. Little Witch Nobedia is mostly positive, even though recently people are not happy with it, and I could see why. This is a game that has taken a real long time to come out. It's supposed to be a Dark Souls game, even though it doesn't look like it, because you have this little anime witch girl casting spells. See Souls-like here. And yeah, it definitely feels like there's an inconsistency as far as the art style and the gameplay style. This game is to be announced, so there's no reason for this to be on the fall list. Little Witch Academia needs more time if it's going to ever succeed, which it probably isn't. I think there's a decent argument there. Little Traveler needs more time. Little Town Hero is already mixed. What's funny is this is from Game Freak Incorporated, which is supposed to be, was the people who made the Pokemon games. But that relevancy here for Game Freak to try and make a Pokemon game or something like a Pokemon game without having Pokemon on the name, and to fail so horribly and with such disinterest is not good for Game Freak. But in all fairness, Game Freak, if this is this actual Game Freak that made the Pokemon games, then maybe I'm wrong about that. It could be two Game Freaks. If it were a case that Game Freak, which I'm fairly certain that was the company that made the Pokemon games a long time ago, this needs more time. If they were kicked out for these more 3D Pokemon games that we're seeing now, that's a good thing, really. I'll give this a little bit more time, because the Pokemon Legend Arceus so far sounds like it is a way better game. Little Nightmares 2 is overwhelmingly positive, so we can go ahead and put that on the wish list. Yeah, again, I'm just trying to get past these fall list cleanups to get to the GameDeveloper.com articles. So I think I've probably gotten past most of them, but I still have a lot of games here that are new. So I'm just gonna try and go through these very quickly. Honestly, it's a lot easier to go through these when you're not really talking about them. and just make the mental decisions myself and look at them, put them on the follow list, than it is to try and actually talk about them and say, well, this game looks like garbage, and most of the time I am just saying a game looks like garbage, because most games do look like garbage. I'm gonna say no to this one. Idle games. But yeah, I'm also not really making any commentary if I just am looking at these games and closing them. But yeah, again, not English supported, and it looks bad. Korean game here, Samurai Tactics. Again, looks terrible. New Demon Lord is new in town. This looks like one of these adult games that's been censored. Like you can see in this screenshot here, you have really tight looking clothes that I assume there was either a lot more cleavage here or just full toplessness here. And you see it in the thumbnail too, that all these outfits have been drawn skin tight. To at least imply some lewdness. But yeah, that's gonna be a no. This will be a no because English was not supported. Plus, I'm not sure there actually is a game here. Like, this is one of these old school Chinese games where it's mostly showing empty backgrounds and they have like a couple pictures of one character and that's it. Here we have a hidden object game, which pretty much we could have a direct just rejection of all hidden object games anyways. Yeah, this doesn't look like anything. And we have another Chinese thing that we'll have to say no to. Here's a real-time strategy. I'm just gonna skip that one. Here's a clicker game. This is, I'm gonna skip that one and just think about, if I'm having to even think about them for a second, I'm gonna just skip them. This one looks like this might be interesting, so I'm gonna put it on the follow list. Alright. So that got me just close enough to see a couple of tabs. GameDeveloper.com says Halo Infinite attracts 20 million players. Frost Giant Studio has raised 25 million for its debut real-time strategy. Epic Games has tapped the Datura developer Plastic for a new Polish studio. Studio will work on original standalone experiences. So Epic Games, I assume, they're opening this new studio, they're not acquiring it. Capcom has delivered a record net sales with help from digital software. John Romero will present a Wolfenstein 3D post-mortem at GDC 2022. I imagine there's not a lot to say there. It looks like Nvidia is not purchasing ARM after all. And the Steam Deck orders will begin on February 25th. Alright, so now I just want to go through a couple more of these games. Like this game Wardish here is probably just a Wardle clone. So I'm gonna say no to that. This is a hidden object game, so we can say no to that. This looks like nothing, so we can say no to that. This is mixed already, so we can say no to that. I don't want to play anything that says COVID simulator, so we can say no to that. That looks bad, so no to that. Not for broadcast. Was on the fall list, but I guess it came out of early access. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on the wish list. I think it did come out of early access because I saw another YouTuber covering it, and there really wasn't a reason to cover it otherwise. This is a player versus player focused game, MMO, so we'll say no to that. A prologue we'll say no to. Nope, nurses. There was something about this game specifically where I think it was removed temporarily, but we can see it's on the fall list. I think that was the story. It was removed temporarily from Steam because of maybe adult content. Obviously, it's going to have some adult content. Well, oddly, it seems completely censored. So maybe this is one of those censored games on Steam. And we have another Chinese game. Let's see. We'll skip that one. Yeah, we have a Bomb Sweeper VR game we can say no to. Egg Roll looks like it's a physics game. You know what, I'll give it a follow. There might be something funny to that concept. Here we have another Chinese only game that's mixed, so we can say no to that. And I'm not going to go through my main Twitter feed either. I'm going to leave that all for Friday. I want to whine about it. No to this. But Friday's Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel got no views. Monday's video live stream got no views. I can't help but wonder if maybe I am just too small of a fish in a big pond with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And it's not making me happy, certainly, when you come back even a couple days later and you have exactly 0 views. I was getting at least 2 or 3 with Shadowverse, and maybe that will affect the decision. It might be very much the case that affects the decision. This is just an asset flip game. To go back to Shadowverse, like there are other problems certainly that might compound with Master Duel, since there's a lot of content missing there. I want to give it a fair shake, certainly, though. But if I will go like a full month and there's just no views at all, then clearly there's no interest in me streaming that game. And I have never really made decisions based on viewership, but I probably should have. I don't want to play one of these restaurant games. So what can anybody do about it? It's just like general. If you are liking Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel streams, if you are watching my videos, suggest it to other people. I don't beg or e-beg for people to do that very often, but yeah, more views would be helpful. I have in the past said I really want subscribers, and it's true. I would much prefer to have 500 subscribers more than getting 500 more views on average, but I kind of like both. This is nothing. This doesn't look visually polished enough for me to want to play it. 3D puzzle house. I may be able to just kind of burn through all of these. I'm going to put this on the follow list. I'm not sure exactly how this is working. It's kind of like a, hey, can you clean up a house gameplay mechanic, which it's not a terrible thought. Might be something fairly zen around that idea. But yeah, I would appreciate some views for the next week or two if people will actually watch. Like, I know this content hasn't been particularly great in the past couple of weeks because of my network problems. Anyways, this game is labeled as a prototype, so I'm going to say no to that just for that reason. Go Go Pogo Girl. Yeah, this is one of those kind of silly NES games. Like, if you're playing a game where the character's on a pogo, you've made a mistake. You're taking way too much control out of people. Generally, I think, like, pogo stick is kind of a silly. Here you have a visual novel that also seems to be kind of around soccer. Interesting. It's labeled nudity, not safe for work. I'll put it on the follow list and see where that goes. But yeah, taking control away from the player or making things difficult is just not a good idea. And frankly, pogo sticks as a concept was always kind of a ridiculous thing. This Kojin game needs to be on the follow list because this is a game I've actually heard about, although it may not be much of anything. We have Please Touch the Artwork. There might be something to that, so we'll give that a follow. Bloody Spell. Looks like another Chinese action game, but it's rated very positive. 1374 single player. I'll consider it. One of these Chinese games has to be good. You would just assume for as many that come out. Nothing there. Nothing there. Card game. I'll put that on the follow list. Nothing there. Let's see. Jetpack Man. It's gonna be a no. Dangerous Hobby. It's gonna be a no. This is support English. No, it doesn't. So that's gonna be a no. This is a first-person shooter, asset flip, so that's gonna be a no. Serious Sam Siberian Mayhem. I'm gonna put on the follow list. Although I guess at this point I probably would just get the bundle, and so just go ahead and put that on the wish list. I haven't played any of the Serious Sam games, but clearly I own a bunch of them. Or maybe I don't. Seems like this bundle is just for Serious Sam and it's not the rest of the series. Maybe I don't want to do the rest of the series. It'd almost be better if that was the case. The 7 Enigma visual novel. We'll give it a chance. I like that the art style is different and more out there, more Western focused, but easily also this is just a asset flip game. Brick Breaker, just by the name we know we're not going to be interested in that. 99 cents English only. Tetris for 2 looks terrible. Let's see, we're gonna look at that one later, and that one later, and that one later, and then Space Betrayers is a card game, social deduction game, so it's online only, so that's gonna be a no for me. Card Escape Plane Crash looks too asset flippy, so no. The Late Deflate Great Estate looks like nothing. And so then the rest of these should be follow list games. So this one needs more time. This one needs more time. This one needs more time. This Liquid Sunshine, I'm gonna give more time to. This one needs more time. I'm sure there's something here I'm interested in. I'll give it more time. This one we can take off. Obviously, people are not happy with it. And then this one we can take off because people are not happy with it. Think we could probably remove this one too because I don't think it's gonna get any more reviews. So yeah, we'll take that off. Some of these games may come out of early access too, and then that may be the point where I look at it again. Actually, no, don't put that on the wish list, put that on the follow list. Still, because it's early access. And this life slide. I guess we'll put that on the wish list. Okay. So, yeah. We didn't really play any Yu-Gi-Oh! At all, and that brought us down to 1 hour and 36 minutes, which theoretically, at some point, if I just was going to do that and get rid of the card game as a concept, that is potentially a thought, certainly. Like, turning a live stream from a 3-hour experience into 1 hour and 36 experience might work for a lot of people, including me. But then I would almost have to play this game off screen, and then I would lose interest in playing off screen, and then I would just stop playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Altogether, or any collectible card game altogether, and instead just have a news live stream. Which maybe that's what I should do. And then I would just have more time to pre-record footage. Anyways, yeah. Again, this has been a weird one. It's kind of crazy to ask for people to get more views. Get your friends to watch this video in particular. Honestly, at this point, I would say just to make me feel good, if you could get your friends to watch even like 5 minutes, that would really hurt whether my videos in the future get suggested, but I don't think my videos are going to get suggested anyway. So yeah, if I could just look at the views number and see that there was a view, and on average it was 5 minutes. Honestly, the average view time on my videos usually are less than 5 minutes anyway, so 5 minutes is more than enough to help me get out of this mental funk. But yeah, any little support would help. And then I'll do the general wrap up here. That's going to be it for this live stream. It's been a short one, been a weird one. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and give me a game off my wish list or a gift card. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.